Greetings! Welcome to the Devlog for Alpha 1 of Update 104 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Boom. Take that, watermelons. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, this is a bit of a grab bag alpha. This has been mostly a week of bug fixing, but also a week of sort of like using the functionality of the sort of save load system and how very specifically it needs things set up to actually find lots of little long-standing bugs that have been in the game for a while, mainly related to things in the item spawner not being configured right. And along the way, I took the time to actually throw some things in the item spawner that have been in the game for a while, but have just been, say, hidden in a scene and haven't been spawnable, or they'll show up and take and hold. So I figured I would start off by just showing you, because some of you folks might not even know these things exist in the game, because we've been doing this nonsense for 6 years. So the first one actually was I finally put the cyber pistol back in the item spawner, which for those of you who don't know the history of H3, this was the first pistol that was ever in the game, basically in the very first prototype. I modeled this myself. This was just in the like, oh, I want kind of a future-y looking thing. Modeled it in an afternoon. It has that amateur art vibe to it. And then sometime afterward, I ended up rechambering it in 10mm DSM, which is one of the more powerful cartridges in the game. And yeah, it was a blast to shoot. Yeah. Blammo. So yeah, so that's finally in there. Under machine pistols, I finally decided to actually put the long flop in the item spawner, because that is just hilarious. Oh, this was a very old joke. Goodness, I've been doing this game for so long. This was a joke done with a user who kept repeatedly requesting long slides for weeks and or months, but they had never specified exactly how long of a long slide they wanted. So I put this in the game. So the long flop. Delightful. I also finally put in, especially seeing as the Calibri 9000 was already in here, you can now spawn the 1911 oversize in the spawner, especially because the spawner has a more reliable, quote-unquote, huge item spawn location. Still incredible. You still, anyone still alive? Wonderful. Just still one of my favorite gags in the game. So that's in there. There's a couple other things that were I sort of, as I was cleaning things up, I added that are now in here under utility. The rail cam and the camcorder are now in here, which means their position, like say if you set up a cam corner for getting a shot, that position will be saved. There's some stuff that still needs to be tuned involving the spectator panel, and this functionality to make machinima making easier. That'll happen probably in like update 105 or something like that. Like I've got a sort of like updated version of this panel that I started working on and didn't finish. That'll happen at some point. I put the glow stick in. Remember, this is actually a light source, so it's pretty expensive to have active, but if you want to play with it, it's in there. What else did I put in? Oh, a few more things under targets, like the gumdrops are now in there. Oh, let's talk about targets, because a bunch of tuning has taken place. The first thing that you will notice is that when you just drop fruit now, it won't just explode from regular height, but if you still slam it into the ground or throw it up high, and have it land, it will still break. So I've essentially tuned those minimum collision thresholds to be similar to the pot, which is durable enough that it can fall from this height, not break. You can put objects in it, move it around, it won't break. But if you still slam it into the ground, it will break. So the various fruit, and I made the pumpkin slightly more durable. Let's see if it takes more than one shot. Yeah. Yep, so it can withstand like one shot before breaking, for those of you who will eventually want to put some sort of explosive into it. Just doing a little cleanup, don't mind me. Good enough. Cool. Oh, other target stuff. So the dueling trees. I basically I fixed that weird bug where the like joint constraints would break. The way I had to fix it kind of stunk though, because I basically had to make these super low mass so they don't disappear when you pick it up. So it does mean that these move very, very easily. So after you've moved the dueling tree into a given spot, you will have to come over here and reset them into place. But then it should behave. That's going to be loud. Wonderful. I also tuned the springs on the auto resetting pop targets. So they go down significantly more when you hit them and then reset. Oop. It took a lot of spring mass tuning to get this behavior and have it actually automated by just the spring instead of like a script or something. There we go. So yeah, much more happy with those. Super fun. So yeah, so that is primarily, well, that is what this update is about. There's a list of a whole bunch, like, there are dozens of items in the item spawner that were broken in one way or another, but they're now fixed. I do want to show you one more thing while we're in VR that is a preview of things to come. This is not in today's alpha because they're not done, but I am working on a set of tools for what will just end up being called the toolbox in the game. They're going to be sort of like the core sandbox tools for playing around in scenes and building scenes and configuring them. And at the core of this, it will basically be a toolbox of piss tools. That pun courtesy of Danny, the 3D artist, who's going to be making the final models for this. Yes, the final versions will not, in fact, be Anton's 2-minute, unshaded model, but basically each piss tool is going to do a single thing. So this is tractor, so I can just select any object and I can move it around. It actually does some smart bounds-based capsule casting, so it doesn't try to like press that object into a surface. I can click sort of like thumb button forward and back. Every single one of these is being built to be just as smooth and clean to use in streamlined mode. Control mode is standard, so each one is basically trigger and 2-button complexity. But yeah, so we can just place something like so. Obviously, because of the physics force, the targets, those move around a whole bunch. But this can even pick up jointed constructs and move them around without issue. So that's tractor. The other one, this is cloner, so we can select an object and we see a bounce for that object and we can just go boop, 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 to lay out a course for ourselves, or if we want to have fun, just like I was doing a whole bunch of that yesterday. So yeah, so we can just very quickly grab an object, lay out a bunch of duplicates of it. There is a rotato, which allows us to very quickly just select an object and change its orientation for ourselves. Boop. Like so. And if you wanted to, obviously, with this is a local orientation, which when you cycle, you can cycle through 3 axes. It's actually quite funny when you pick certain sorts of objects to do this with. Like so, you can sort of like walk them around. I'm a dancing magazine, yeah. So yeah, So that's rotato and then deletos. Mind you, half the sounds you're hearing with these as well, these are just temp, these are mocked up visual effects, all still super in progress, but I wanted to show it to you early. Boop. So that just deletes. This will have a fast and a slow delete. It'll default to a slow delete, so you don't accidentally delete things by just, feathering the trigger, but you'll be able to turn it into like a 0.1 or a 0.2 second delete to rapidly remove things. So yeah, boop. So this is just a couple of the tools. I've got a set of like 8 core ones planned, and then once those are all working, I have another set planned that are all going to be about SOSIGs in the game. If you've been wondering how you'll be able to do some of the stuff that is in the grill house scene, but for yourself, like in terms of attack pads and where SOSIGs spawn, that is also going to be something that you will set up using piss tools. So that will, but that'll come after I get the core set in and working great. So this will be this stuff is going to be update 105 stuff. I'm not going to keep update 104 in alpha until this is ready, especially because the 3D models for all this are probably going to take a couple weeks to do. But I wanted to give you this early preview just because with the saving and loading system, I've been getting lots of questions about but when can I set up, are you going to make it easier for me to set up a custom course for myself? And yes, I am working on it, and it's finally coming together well. And that's what this set of tools is going to be about. Blammo. Cool. So let's jump out of VR real quick and just talk about the other little changes and bug fixes in today's alpha. Yo. So we're out of VR. What else is in this alpha? I realized I had missed a few things. The hot dog grenade, which is less of a graded and more just a hot dog with a fuse because it's dynamite, is finally in the item spawner as well. The most recent set of Sosa guns, which were like technically in the game and could spawn in a couple narrow contexts, are now properly in the item spawner as well. In terms of the broken metadata that was preventing serialization, it's not 100% done. So like the plunger launcher, the spam, the U-spatial attachments, a whole bunch of the ordnance cartridges and such, and a few attachments were all broken. Those are all fixed and should save down. I have not yet gotten to the Meat Fortress cartridges and a couple of the sort of secondary magazines. So if you were like making a whole bunch of cool loadouts for yourself, hold out on the Meat Fortress stuff until I can get that sort of properly, fully migrated and upgraded up into the item spawner 100% correctly. Fixed an IFF issue with pinned impact grenades that was reported by I think Andrew in the community. And just a number of other just sort of like misnamed fields. It's funny because like the new vault is more precise and more demanding about sort of data integrity than the old vault was. And so I've sort of been able to de facto use it as a way to sort of like clean up a bunch of like little errors that didn't really break anything in the past, but now like could lead to a problem. And so that's what this update has really been about. So there's still some work going on involving the save load system. There's still some things to tune, but this alpha is basically to do a final sort of sanity check to make sure everything is at least stable enough to go back onto main branch, in part just because this functionality set is sort of done enough for now for that kind of release, and also so that like modders and mod maker folk can sort of remerge into a single main branch thing again, just so that there's less hassle with people being like, what version of anything do I use? And just getting that all cleaned up so that I can continue my work. Which is going to, for update 105, is going to be about continuing the save load system and essentially migrating our first set of the Sandbox scenes over to using the save load system and making sure that works. So I'm going to sort of like rebuild the target setup for Friendly 45, for Arizona targets, and probably the sniper range, all using this system. They will load their default configuration from this system, and you'll be able to tweak them once I get that done. So that will be next steps, and that will either happen in 105 or it'll happen in this next week as the final part of update 104's push. It all depends on how many more like bugs and other things I run into that I need to fix this week. Whew, so that just about does it. I hope you have fun continuing to play around with this system and find all the problems with it for me. And I'm going to continue trucking along. So hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.